Alright everyone, Supreme Comer here. So let's actually do the review for these two units over here. We got the Sinanju and then as well as the Victory 2 Assault Buster. So let's actually take a look at what they do. So in terms of the Sinanju over here, you are looking at 9 parts in total, but you do have 6 different types of EX over here. 2 for your ranged EX, and then 4 melee type EX over here. So I would say this overall unit for the Sinanju is more of like a for show type unit. Obviously, you got a pretty good range of EX. I think the most fun, probably a fun one to use, probably going to be Lake. Because this one is the meteor kick, so this one should pack some good animation. The next one is going to be your halt unit from um, the chest over here. This one, the Sinanju actually gets onto the new Xiao. And then he fires up abundance of beam from his whatever is it, his hand, the new young hand or whatever. I don't know. But this one is more of like you can say more of like a AOE-ish kind of EX over here. It's pretty good. Like the overall animation is pretty satisfying. You know, just him getting onto that and then firing up that beam. You know, unfortunately, just B power is not. I would say it's not sufficient enough, right? Alright, but let's actually start from the head to the shield and see what this guy is packing. But before I do proceed on, right, this guy is more of a dual build again, because you do have commander and close combat and then Xeon as the last tag. So this one is gonna, if you for example build out the full set of this guy, you should come up to a pretty reasonable amount it should be a little bit higher on the melee spectrum, and then for the shot you should be doing pretty good because commander does give out 10% shot attack, so you should be doing pretty decent. But I feel like this guy is more on like a sub slot ish, because depending on like, because there are certain types of like arena where you can cheese in like a little bit of like a commander and like a melee build, and you can kind of work some magic out of that. So I feel like this unit over here, because of how the word tag is configured, you can kind of do some pretty magical stuff a bit in all that. But in terms of the overall head, you are not really gonna get the best of the stat overall. From what we're looking at over here from the chart I have over here, melee is okay, it's serviceable, but the shot attack is gone, basically. In terms of the portrait over here, so this guy is also gonna want you to specifically use that outrider job. So it is gonna lean a little bit towards the melee build if you, for example, have the full set. Is that something you really need to get? I wouldn't say you do, because first of all, you have to use commander. So this is gonna force you to probably run a dual build type situation over here, which probably, I don't know how many people. I mean, I know people do it, but I don't know how what is the percentage, right? But if you guys are one of those folks that do have like a dual build, maybe this one can work for you over here, because you have to use commander, you have to use Outrider pilot over here. I mean, even if you do use a Outrider on a shot, for example, I think overall you're just losing out that 5%, because like when you set the pilot, you set it to like infighter outrider, you do get a little bit of a melee boosting, and then you set it to like mid or long range pilot, they do obviously offer a little bit of a 5% to that shot attack. I mean, you can technically run it on a shot build of a infighter or outrider, excuse me, no problem. I think you're just gonna lose out on a little bit of its stat overall. But I wouldn't really go out of my head to alterate the head over here. I don't think it's too sufficient. That's just my opinion. If you do like it, maybe you can alterate it. Alright, moving on to the chest over here. We do have an EX skill over here. In terms of overall stat, this is purely going to be for that skin purposes. I don't think you want to be running this on your even subslot or your main parts, but this one does have some pretty decent defensive value over here, coming in at 5,700 across the board, so it's pretty good. That is going to be something okay if you do need some subslotting material over here. This one can be a good option, but the main selling point is probably just going to be this EXQ over here. The whole unit, like I said, this one he gets onto the Sinanju, and Sinanju gets onto the new Zhang, and then to fire off abundance of beam. It's more of like an AOE ish over here. It is gonna raise your shot attack up by 39%, so that is good. But I feel like if this just B power isn't enough, but it is better than C power, right? So that is that. If you do want to alterate it, I feel like this one, I would personally alterate this one just because of the overall animation and all that. But this one will probably be your skin purpose only, right? All right, moving on to the arm over here. The arm isn't gonna pack that good of a melee attack over here, and it also does have an EX over here, so that is one negative part of it. So this one will most likely end up being on a for a skin again. You can obviously put this on like your main build, and then I don't know, like the word tag, you're gonna have to do some. You do have some good 1-to-100 skill options because you do have close combat, so that is good. So there are some pretty good 1-to-1 scale stuff you can kind of slap onto, but the part trace for the 1-to-1 scale are not the most optimal in terms of like double boosting and all that. There is at least one stat boosting, but the second, like one of the other portrait is not the best. It's either like boosting crits, or it's like when you have one enemy, when you shoot down or when you destroy one enemy, you do get like a EXQ reduction by 50%. So you're looking at that range. So I don't know. I feel like this one would just be more useful in like skin purposes and all that. Defense is serviceable as well. 4K is I would say it's low balling it, but it should be fine if you do sub slot, if you have this guy as a sub slot purposes and all that. Alright, so let's move on to the leg over here. The leg is gonna be our meteorite kicks. We do have another version of this coming out from the Sinanju Stein. I think these two are exactly the same in terms of like what the effects is packing. So if you guys do already have the Sinanju Stein alterated, I feel like you can just skip on this one over here if they do have the same animation. I didn't actually use this EXQ yet, so but if they do have the same animation, if you have the Sinanju Stein already, there's really no purpose of alterating another one. So that is that. You do have a speed increase of 20%, also gonna raise your melee attack up 24. So that is actually pretty good. So this one and then the Sinanju Stein, these are pretty good. It's always pretty good to have some offensive stat increases over here. Also speed, so that's good. In terms of the overall stat, I think the main selling point just from this one over here, you do have pretty decent amount of like defense again. So offensive stat is not going to be anything too impressive, but that defense kind of makes up for it in a way. Not going to make up for it in general, but if we do want to use these two defensive value for arena, for example, I think that can be good. That can be a good option. This one does have a Xeon type for the tag over here. So for that melee defense arena we had like a while ago, this one will come in clutch for sure, because 10% melee defense over here, also 5% melee attack over here. So this is exact opposite of what you see from the mobile fighter tag over here. But this one is actually decent enough, that people do run it. Alright, moving on to the backpack over here, you do have an EX skill. I didn't actually look at the portrait over here. Wow. Let's see. Okay, in terms of the portrait, this one is actually pretty good. But there are events that is going to be restricted already. Like you want to run this on arena because there is only that one enemy, so not going to be good. You're not going to run this on like a single enemy multi mission, so that is out of the question already. Because there's only one enemy to like shoot down, so this one will be good in like scenario where you have multiple enemy. Once you KO that one enemy, this will automatically proctor it, and then you can get yourself up to 65% melee increase over here, melee power boosting. So that is good. So it's just depending on what kind of like event you're looking at. This one can be good, but obviously there's some that this portrait is not gonna. It's a little bit unforgiving, right? First portrait is gonna be okay. It does want you to use the alpha job over here, so that is one thing you have to keep in mind. If you guys can fulfill this one and this one over here, this one can be a good grab, obviously, because we don't really see too much of a good representation very good portrait for back anyways, so I feel like this one can be good. But the word tag over here is it is gonna be a little bit more hard to manage. I feel like if anyone out there is running as the N-type, this one is gonna be a perfect backpack portrait subslot rating. I believe, if I recall, the Sinanju style also has a portrait, and that one is a little bit more manageable because the portrait or the word tag is not commander, it's high firepower, I believe. So that one will work a little bit more easier, a little bit more accessible to like a melee build. Compared to this one over here, you have a commander tag over here. So yeah, it is. You're gonna have to do a little bit more work in order to enjoy the 65%. But if you can, this one will be good. Alright, so moving on to the axe over here, the beam axe over here. So this one is going to be EXQ over here. So in terms of like a melee build, you obviously won't be running this as a main part, you know, because on a melee build, you will always trying to find any melee weapon that has a portrait, so you can get benefit of that. So this one will end up most likely being run as the portrait on the skin as a EXQ. So this one is going to be a piercing axe over here. It's a pretty good overall distribution over here. 3 second on the first usage over here. 21 second, B plus across the bar. So this one should be good. It should do pretty high amount of power. Also gonna give you a little bit of a pretty good piercing value over here. So you should be all in all do good damage, right? But like I said, this one will just mainly be on the skin purposes. But keep in mind, sometimes, like depending on what build you guys are looking at, the axe category may not be the best option to run, because there are times when specific portrait says, oh, you wanted to use like you know, let's say twin beam saber, no, dual beam saber. So you cannot use this, right? Or let's say sometimes once you use a single saber, you really cannot, because this one is the axe category. So it really depends on what your build is looking at. If you can fulfill, like if you have portrait that does not need a specific melee weapon category, then this one will be a pretty good choice for you guys out there. All right, so let's move on to the beam. No, what is this over here? This one is gonna be your this one is gonna be a couplet of your beam axe over here. So this one is gonna be your twin saber. So there is the dual and then the twin. So this one is coupled. Same stat again, but this one does have the EX or portrait over here. This one is actually pretty good. Close combat is actually going to be one you are going to be using for sure on a melee build, so that is good. But in terms of the torso, that is going to be a little bit too specific, I feel like. But obviously the torso EX is like probably the dominating factor of this unit over here. So obviously you want to be boosting that. But if this was you know, generic, where it's like, oh, just instead of same torso part over here, maybe they give it another negative effect, I think this will be pretty good. But just because of this, I feel like you don't really need it, because I don't know how many good melee EXT are coming out of the chest anyway. So I feel like this one can be one you want to hold up onto. But it's definitely good if you do have a torso EXT, obviously. Double EXQ power is always a plus, right? But besides that, I don't know. I'll probably hold off onto it. The tech is gonna be issue, obviously. Commander, like, come on, yeah. Just because of that, I feel like this one can be a, you know, secondary option if you really do need it. But other than that, you know, there is always better melee weapon sets out there with good portrait anyway. So, alright, moving on to this one over here. This one is the beam rifle plus the rocket bazooka over here. So this one is gonna have your EXQ over here. The Pierce B plus power, 11 magazine. Interesting about this one, this is probably, if I'm not mistaken, the first time these EXQ, or this one is specifically having a 41-second cooldown. Because in general, these kind of magazine type EXQ having like a magazine, there usually does not have any shorten on their cooldown over here. So this one is actually gonna be good. But is this one something you have to alterate? Not necessary, because if you do, let me see if I do have this one for example. Let's see. I do have it. Okay, so the only thing you are gonna be missing. Oh, wow. Oh, never mind. So this one, EP before alteration, does have a 41-second cooldown. I thought it was something they added for the alteration. So, that's my bad on that. So the only thing you are gonna be losing out if we don't alterate it is only gonna be bumping to a B plus power, which I feel like B power should be sufficient enough to do good damage. So I feel like this is something you don't really need to alterate in a way. So that is, you can just save yourself some alteration tools in that manner, right? I feel like it should do good damage already before alteration, but it's always good to have that little extra, the extra pow damage onto it. But it's not necessary. But if you guys do want the ultimate damage, be my guest and alterate it. But other than that, I feel like it should be good even without the alteration on this part over here. All right, the last EX skill is going to be the shield over here. All right, in terms of overall stat, it's serviceable again in terms of like your melee defensive value, or not your melee defensive value. In terms of like the melee stat over here, the defensive value on this guy is actually pretty good, almost at 6k. So that is gonna be good. This one, if I'm not mistaken, before alteration is only B plus power, so it's one of those you don't really need to alterate. I feel like having a B plus power should be sufficient enough, so you can save yourself another set of 5 alteration tool on this one already. I feel, yeah, I just feel like B power is good enough already. Yeah, so that should be pretty much it. I think the only one I would personally go out of my way to alterate is just probably gonna be the chest for that, that EXQ animation. Besides that, all the other one, I don't. Maybe the backpack. I think the backpack can be good for what it's worth, because we don't see too many good or portrait from the backpack, right? So with that being said, that is that for the Sinanju. So right up next, we will be moving on to the V2 Assault Buster as well. Alright, so moving on to the Victory 2 Assault Buster over here. So this one is obviously going to be a heavily shot-based unit over here. So in terms of the war check that this guy is going to come across is you're going to have the high firepower, Gundam type, and high mobility. So Gundam type and high firepower, I feel like is that third tier tag, or that third option you want to run for your shot unit. So I don't know. It's just having the, because like you do have Commander and Ace exclusive. Those are like the two main stable for like a pretty standard build. So I feel like those two tags is just me personally. I don't know like if like throughout the whole player base, like do they run both at the same time? If there's ever any trace that has you have to have those two, then there you go. But at this point in time, I don't think there's any portrait in particular that wants to use both of those tags together. I know there is for like Ace exclusive and high firepower, but not of those two in particular. So, in terms of overall Victory 2 Assault Buster over here, the overall stat is okay. I feel like we just have gotten so many better really good shot unit parts that I feel like even with the even with these part getting an alteration, they're not gonna be on that really like top tiers and all that. But if you guys do like the Victory 2 Assault Buster, I mean, summon for what you guys like, right? There's really there shouldn't be like any real answer like, oh, do you want it or not? Is just more like, do you want it in game, or if you guys have the actual gunpla in your hands already and you kind of want it in game, I think that's gonna be the better mentality, and better than just chasing the overall stats and these guys over here, right? But in terms of the overall stat of this guy over here, you are gonna make it to the 10,500 ish, which is okay. It's not like your top 10 whatsoever, right? It's gonna do sufficient work here. One noticeable part in most shot base head, usually there isn't armor at all. But this guy will have around 4,500 ish armor over here, so that is pretty good actually. Shot defense is actually looking pretty decent as well. So that's a plus side over here. But in terms of the portrait, yeah, you're not looking too hot. Gradually raising armor by 200, which is good, I guess. I don't know, like these I don't. It's just more like, can you recover more health like after you taking a hit? I feel like you cannot really in most case scenario. if you take a custom EX skill attack, you're just bound to get KO on the spot. So even having this second portrait is not going to do any sufficient work. The first portrait is obviously pretty good, just that 7,000 is a you can easily break that 7,000 barrier, obviously, but the second portrait is it's just a pretty bad letdown over here. This one is pretty similar to the Zabanya head. I don't know if that head is still good nowadays in terms of overall stat, but same portrait over there in that perspective. This is like something I wouldn't really portray. So this one is a must give for sure. If you guys put ahead, this is not something you want to invest in just because the overall portrait is not the most ideal. That is that. But in terms of the portrait or the word tag, you have high firepower and Gundam type, which is okay. Just kind of have to pick in between which one of the two you want to be using on your builds and all that. All right, moving on to the chest over here. Overall stat of the chest is actually pretty decent. I see some pretty okay armor stat over there. So having 5,000 is actually pretty good. I would say that is a little bit higher than average than most shot-based build. If you want to put it in that way. But the overall, like the raw shot attack is actually good. Like 4,000, like that's that's beyond good. Just unfortunate the shot defense isn't as high as it should be. I think most are coming in around 4K ish over here, but 3950 is actually not a bad terrible number. So after the change gear and all that, you're looking at 5,300, which is okay. Just because that we have so much, like we have gone to so many shot build units that have some ridiculous shot attack on chest, even on the other part that are not your head or the ranged weapon. So this one coming into that 5,000 range after the change gear is actually good. In terms of the portrait over here, so this one doesn't want you using high firepower when you have high firepower tag active. You get a shooting power boost by 30%, and then when you have that back, this one is specific to that back part. That gives skill power boosted by 35% over here. I feel like back part is okay, because most custom E skill are coming out of the back part, but there are some few exceptions where there are different types of parts that do have a custom E skill. So in that perspective, they will not gain the benefit of this one. So I would say this one can be replaceable because like we have got like I said, we have so many parts that recently came out that has good portrait on the chest, like what is it, I believe the Seri, the one we got, probably the Sahara one, like this. I keep forgetting how to really pronounce it, that the Seri, the last part of the name, but that one has some pretty good portrait. You have High New Gundam version Ka that has pretty good portrait as well, and probably one of the higher stat over there. I believe the Unicorn Perfectibility has some good portrait as well. So you're looking at so many different options as well. You can even look at like the build projects. What is it? Build project No Name Gundam does have okay. That straight no name is okay. That's why I say there's so many abundance of it. If this is something you don't really need, because the overall stat is not the most like highest whatsoever. But definitely this is not terrible, right? This is definitely workable if you have a high firepower over here. Tag wise, it's gonna be the same high firepower and Gundam type again over here. So I don't think there's any specific part that wants you to use Gundam type. So that is good, I guess. That is good. Alright, in terms of the arm over here, the melee value is not going to be anything too sufficient, but the shot attack, yeah, the base shot attack 4,300, that's good. Like that's actually pretty decent at that change gear. So you are coming in around your 5,000 range over here, which is okay. It could have been a little bit more better because most nowadays, most modern ones that have came out nowadays are pushing anywhere from like 5,500 to 6,000 range. So this one I would say is not really gonna make it into that top of the line. And this one has the E skill as well, so there's gonna be a little bit of a minus, and this one, is this someone you really need to alterate? I feel like if you really do want to get the most out of it, yes you do, because I believe before alteration it should be D power. So you jumping from D power to B plus power. So if you do want the maximum damage capability of this E skill, you do have to alterate, but you know, it just comes down to like a personal preference. Do you like the E skills and all that? Like most E skills should do around give or take with fluctuations, and you know, they should do around the same types of damage. Like in terms of like these types over here, like the spinning beam saber, like A pierce, you are gonna do decent amount of damage on top of B plus power. So that is that. So if you're comparing to, let's say, um, D pierce and B plus, you're gonna see discrepancy, right? Obviously, this one will do a lot more better because you do have that piercing value on top of that, right? I feel like if that is a good comparison, I feel like the D pierce and A minus power, or even A, I think those should be, you know, in the most, you know, I think you should compare it in that perspective, right? But this one should be good, but I never actually tested it myself. I don't have it in my arsenal, so I can't really take it out and use it. But if you do, like I said, if you do want to get the most out of it, you're going to have to alterate it to get that B plus power. Otherwise, right? Tag wise, you're looking at the same high power and Gundam type again. But this one is most likely is going to be used on I would say on a skin for the E skill, unless you do want it for the overall sub slot. Um, I guess bonuses over here in terms of what it's offering. 5k is lowballing it, but I feel like for a sub slot that can be okay-ish over here. It should be okay. Alright, moving on to the leg over here, we do have another EXQ over here. So this one, the overall stat is pretty evenly distributed. I can see that the shot attack is obviously the more prominent up here. So 3k and 3800 for both the attack and shot defense over here. The leg is not gonna have, you know, the best overall stats here. I don't think the leg for the shot department isn't as high yet. I don't think there's anything that comes up to like a 6k yet, so that's good. So the leg parts still had a long way to go before they can, you know, hit that 6k mark. But you know, who knows, maybe next week we get some shot legs part that comes up to like a 6,000 digit over here. But this one is going to be another EQ, and then in terms of the portrait, this one is going to have high firepower and high mobility. So in terms of, you know, tags over here, you know, yeah, this one will have high mobility because of, like, I guess throughout the V2 series, so the victory line does have it. I mean, in terms of subslot options, in terms of the length, it should be okay because high firepower, we should have a little bit more room for, you know, the most you can probably get if, for example, you are gonna subslot this one, maybe just a 10.5%. Not really gonna cut it, right? But it is what it is, right? This one, in my opinion, this is just more for like using it on the skin for the EX skill over here. So this is a situation where you have a D pierce and A minus power. I think if you want to compare damage, like I said, from the A pierce to a B plus power, I think these two can be head to head, just because of what they're doing differently. In terms of this one over here, you are using the Whispers plus the missile, the micro missile over here. So I believe the micro missile should be a physical type shot over here. So what these actually do physical, depending what kind of portrait you guys are looking at. I think if there's some that specifically targets the beam, I don't think the micro missile would do the same amount of damage. Just like compare if you have portrait that say, oh, damage increased to only the physical, then your Whisper is not going to do as much damage, right? So these kind of E skill are kind of like really on that wonky spot, I guess. But the damage mitigation, like in terms of like the damage deficiency, shouldn't be too much where you have a big problem. Overall, you should still see a pretty decent amount of like damage output, right? I just want to get that out there over here. So it's gonna attack waves, so micro missiles, and then cannon attaching to your waist. So it should be a pretty decent amount, like, you know, damage output for this one over here. I don't actually have it, so I cannot really test it out myself, unfortunately. But this one is something in the case that you don't really need to alterate because it should be B plus power. before alteration already, so that should be sufficient enough. Unless you want to go that extra mile, you want to spend a little bit of your alteration tools, that, I guess, right? But B plus power should be sufficient throughout, just taking out any stage and any events and all that. So, all right, moving on to the backpack over here. This is our casting EXQ over here. In terms of the overall stat, you're not looking anything too impressive overall. Obviously, the shot department is going to be a little bit more outstanding from here. For 4700 over here. So in terms of the tag over here, you are looking at high power and high mobility. So this cutscene EXQ, unfortunately, it's not going to grant you that, that S power over here. So these one over here, because usually in this kind of like a setup over here, like where they have a really extremely high piercing over here, they usually like the first time usage is usually 12 seconds. But this one is only 8 power. Yeah. What is it before alteration? I do have it. So most of the time when we see these they usually have the faster first time usage, but this one unfortunately does not. Could I click on it? Okay. This one you are looking to see. Yeah, these are generally how the setup is, and then the first time usage is only 12 seconds. So this one is going out of the different from the ordinary. So A power and A pierce. That should be a pretty good combo nonetheless. A plus power and A plus pierce is currently the highest. No, I think we did have a E skill that has. Let me check. I think we did have something that has a S pierce, right? Yeah, this one is this. So the highest pierce we have currently is gonna be this one over here. So this one comes in the S pierce. So yeah, this one is gonna do a lot of good damage, like in terms of like breaking through your enemy that has like extreme high defensive capability. So this one is gonna knock that down. So A plus power is A plus pierce is okay, but if they would have bumped it up to like S power, that would have made S pierce. That would make it 10 times better. Is this something you want to alterate? Like I said, and these kind of custom EXQ, it's gonna really depend on do you want it. Me personally, I will still stick to anything that's S power. I feel like that is gonna give you the most amount of power. But this one having an A pierce, just in case you are facing off any enemy that has extreme high defense, having an A plus pierce would definitely break you, and you will still be able to do good chunks of damage. This one is gonna have one effects only gonna raise your shot attack up by 49%. Unfortunately, no additional effects. That will probably give a lot of people just say, oh, don't want to alterate because you're not offering any other additional bonuses. So just I'll probably leave this one to you guys whether or not you want to alterate. That will just really depends on your personal preference. Alright, moving on to long rifles. Over here we got the Mega Beam Rifle over here. Overall stat is gonna be a little bit on the lower tier over here, 11.2k. I think most decent one are nowadays are pushing into the 12k barrier, but that's like only a handful of them, right? In terms of portrait over here, man, why would it throw an EXQ crit on a Sokai or suit over here? So with a crit over here, this automatically nullified what this one will do. So this one is a highly skippable. Just because you do have a crit over here, so that is that. Word tag wise, high firepower and high mobility. That's a pretty bad combo for a ranged weapon over here. So this one I'll skip on the alteration. If you guys do have it, I'll say don't alterate it. On the other hand, the beam rifle over here, this one is a good one. This one is gonna offer you some initial charge over here, so that's gonna be good. You're also gonna get a shooting power boosted by 35% when you are using a P attribute. So both of them does want you to be using a P attribute, and if your P attribute is lacking a good portrait that gives you ICD, this one would be one over here if you do have it. But I'm pretty sure there are some better ones out there already. So this one you don't really need it, but if you do want it, it's either if you want your saber, it's just more like if your other parts can fulfill your ICD role, then you don't need it. If you still cannot fulfill this requirement, then this is something you can take benefit of. But keep in mind, this one is only specific to that P attribute. So S and T, you're not going to be looking at any benefit of that. So keep that in mind as well before alterating it. Just want to make sure you can put this on your overall build. So the word tag over here is going to be a little bit more easier to work around. High firepower and Gundam type over here, both shot based tags over here. So this is just a little bit more easier to work around in general. Alright, moving on to the shield over here. In terms of the overall value from the shot attack, it's gonna be a little bit good. 4300 is okay. I think that's pretty much around that range for shields nowadays. I don't think that anything has gone up to the 6,000 or like anything above 5,000 yet. Like, so this is still pretty good for now. In terms of the portrait, this portrait is good. So you have one of those buff EXQ effects by 30%. So this one is a must-have. If you guys are able to get the shield, this is a good part to be getting. It's just unfortunate the first portrait is only gonna be like a enemy shooting power reduced by 30%. But regardless, this shield is gonna be phenomenal in terms of like giving you the best amount of damage with these kind of portrait over here. This one is good. They definitely did a good job on the shield over here. Over here, giving this buff effects up by 30%, so this one is good. In terms of the tag, you are gonna have to replace that high mobility with some other, shop-based tags over here. But otherwise, this shield is a must-have. If you guys do have it, this one is the one to alterate. So of all the parts, if you have everything, right? For example, you have everything. Which one you want to alterate? Probably shield is gonna be your first priority. I think the other one is not anywhere close to that. In terms of the EX, like I said, alterate it at your own risk and all that. In terms of the backpack, it just really depends. The leg is not something you need to alterate, but the arm EX, if you want to get the most damage power, or if you want to get the most output out of that, you are gonna have to alterate and all that. So that being said, that is pretty much it for these two guys over here. They're not the most like groundbreaking and all that, but they do serve pretty good roles in what they can do, right? So that being said, this will be it for this video over here, and then I'll catch you guys out on the next one.